Hey everybody, Gisele Grenier here. So in this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to come up with a green color that's useful for landscapes and for portraits. And it's also going to sound funny for portraits, but sap green. The sap green is one of those colors that's a greenish, yellowish green that is more toned down, it's not as intense, and is transparent. Sap green is not a single pigment. It's made up with a bunch of different pigments, and all different paint manufacturers make it up differently. And even within that, paint manufacturers also have their own lines. So for this example, I'm going to use DecoArt. They have a sap green for the traditions and using one mixture. Then they have a different mixture using for the fluid acrylics. They have their own reason why, and they also have their own formulation for that. So us as artists, if we can't get a particular sap green, or let's say we prefer it a different way, it's up to us to try to figure out how to make it up on our own. Sap green has been used for a really long time. It's unlikely that it'll ever be discontinued, but I prefer having control over the colors because I have a limited palette and I want to make up my own colors using that limited palette, and it just reduces a particular paint I have to buy. But even with that, if time is of the essence and you're going to use a lot of that color, buying it pre-mixed is fine. But if you happen to run out of that color, wouldn't it be nice to know how to make it up yourself? Because it's great for landscapes as well. So what I have here is I have my color chart. You can do this in an art journal or your color mixing journal. And the colors that I have, I'm just going to bring them out here. So it's the DecoArt Media Fluid Acrylics, and I also have a chart for something else. So I've got the Sap Green, Phthalo Green Yellow, Hansa Yellow Medium, Burnt Sienna, Transparent Red Iron Oxide, Carbon Black, and Titanium White, only to create a value scale so you can see the true underlying color. So with this, I brought this out just to do a comparison, and by having the pigment numbers on the back, you can see exactly it's made up with PY151, PBR7, PG36, and PBK7. Well, I know for a fact that PBK7 is Carbon Black, PG36 is Phthalo Green Yellow, PBR7 is a brown. Which brown, I have no idea. But I'm likely thinking it's burnt sienna because you have burnt umber, raw umber, and raw sienna. So I'm thinking it's probably burnt umber. And thinking of that because I know that I've made the mixture using transparent red iron oxide and it looks even better. So I'm also going to be doing it with this one. PY151, I don't know, I don't have it, a pigment with that number on it. I'm thinking it's probably more of a neutral yellow. So you could probably even substitute Hansa Yellow for that. I'm going to be using Hansa Yellow Medium because that's in my limited palette. So I have that for an example. And also on the chart I have here are some colors that basically, for certain lines that I use, I have naphtha red light and alizarin crimson and a sap green, but what if you don't have a red that's on the orange side or a red that's on the blue side or a green that's on the yellow side, like a neutral one? So I use this to create those mixtures. So this is the Traditions Sap Green, and I have another tutorial available on how to make up your own sap green using premium acrylics. You make up your own, which was pretty close. So this one with the fluid acrylics, I'm going to be introducing transparent red iron oxide for a mixture, and you'll need something to create your mixture in. So I'm just using a chart that I use because it's a bit more structured. First thing you want to do, first lay out your colors. And I have a big strip of white here so I can take from the outside so I don't contaminate it. One thing with the fluid acrylics is that the paints are more transparent. You'll need cleaning buckets, water buckets. I have two buckets. I clean in the first one, rinse the brush, blot it, then rinse in the second one. That way my brush is always clean. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take sap green and we're going to pop it up here. We need something to compare it to. So first impressions, without even looking at the back of the bottle, is I can see that this is a transparent mixture. It's dark. It's not super intense as is. So now when we add white to this, I'll need to pick up a little bit more because it is so transparent. So this is by adding white. Now I look at this, and this is typically not the type of sap green I would use when painting, let's say, a portrait, or if I need a green that's more on the yellow side. This is, and I know why it's like this, because of the addition of black. So when you compare, that's very different. That's very different. And it's also made up, let's see, with 4 pigments. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, with 4 pigments. So we can knock it down by using just 3 pigments. So phthalo green, Hansa yellow, phthalo green yellow, Hansa yellow medium, and burnt sienna, or phthalo green yellow, Hansa yellow medium, and transparent red iron oxide. You can knock it down with 3, which is what I'm going to end up showing you. So as we're doing any color mix, it's always a good practice to put your paints down on your chart so you can see the opacity. Eventually, after a while, you'll know, but it's always nice to be able to document what you're doing because you can refer to it in the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the paints out, and then I'm going to take white and paint that below. That way I can see the true underlying color. Again, I already know what these are, but this is a great reference point because then I can, like I said, I can document this for my color mixing journal and I can see exactly how I made the mixtures. So I'm going to do that for the rest of the colors. So I have my chart here, and what I'll do is when the paint is dry, I'll also write down what they are and then the actual line of paints that I'm using, because paint manufacturers process their paints differently. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our mixtures on the palette. Let me just move over a little bit more. There we go. So I'm thinking, well, to match up to something like this, and because it's 4 pigments, it can be in almost any order. With the yellow, because I don't have the yellow that's in here, it's going to be hard to really figure out how I'm going to get the mix exact, because you can't, because that's the way they made it. And so it's a matter of just trying. So the first one I'm going to try is by taking but that much burnt sienna. I'm thinking let's try half of phthalo green. So we'll mix that together. And with that, I'm going to take a little bit of Hansa yellow medium, and then I also know that there's black in there. And you can do this all day long. And I'm looking at this and okay, the black, was that too much? It looks like it's too much, but let's add white to see what the true underlying color is. Oh yeah, that's way, way, way too much. Or is it? Not quite yellow enough. So what does that tell me? Well, add a little bit more yellow. Let's bring that in there. I'm trying to get the value to this. Is it the same? Let's make that. Let's do that over here. Now, what you can do, which I should have showed you. Let me reach that. Get some scrap paper and take your mixtures and put it here, and then put it beside. It's a little bit dark. Now, adding white to match the value isn't important because it's just creating a value, but I'm using it more of a, it makes it easier to match that. I have to let that dry a bit. I'm finding that it's a little bit too neutral. Let me add a little bit more green to that and see. Oh, that's actually not too bad. Now, as this is darkening, it's getting closer and closer. So I'm thinking that with this particular mixture is, so the 2 parts, so the 1 part burnt sienna, half a part of phthalo green, a touch of Hansa yellow medium, and a touch of carbon black, and then bring it up. But was more green in there. See, so I put a fresh one here, and it's lighter than the first one. That's because it just had to darken. So yeah, so that's pretty close. Now you're not going to get a perfect match because the yellow is different. That's using phthalo green yellow, Hansa yellow medium, burnt sienna, and carbon black using 4 pigments. So let's try. I'm going to take that mixture. Let's just put that mixture up here. Although it does have a little bit more yellow in it, it's going to be too dark to tell the difference anyways. All right. So if we took the same mixture now, let's take that mixture, let's knock it down to only 3 pigments. Let's take, thinking along the same line, so let's take phthalo, green, yellow, and let's put that into 2 different piles. Okay, try to match them up the same. I'm going to take double the amount of burnt sienna. Let's mix that up. So 2 parts burnt sienna and 1 part phthalo, green, yellow. And to that, let's add a touch of Hansa Yellow Light. What I'm doing is I'm coming up with a green that's a little bit more on the yellow side, just a little bit more. I don't want to add black. There we go. You can tell with the mixture I made, there was way too much black in that. So I can also tell that this is actually the sap green from the actual mixed sap green versus this one here, that this one seems to be a little bit, has a little bit more opacity to it because of the addition of burnt sienna. Although burnt sienna is an opaque color, these are fluid acrylics, which are more transparent anyways. Let's add a little bit of white to that. Yeah, this one I like much better. And as I'm mixing my brush, I can see there's more phthalo green coming out, which is brightening this up. So I'm going to put a bit more burnt sienna in there. There we go. That's why you got to make sure that you completely mix the paint. That way you're not making a mark and some green or some other intense color that it doesn't appear when you're painting. Yeah, I'm liking this one a little bit better. And that'll be up to that'll be a decision that you'll have to make which one you like. Like for landscapes, you can make up so many different greens. You don't need to buy a green. You can make up so many different greens. The only thing that you may want to look at is if you're painting in acrylics, watercolors, they're water soluble, but especially with acrylics, if you're painting outside, because drying time is an issue, then what you may want to do is if you're always making up like a particular mixture, is to see if you can buy it pre-mixed. That way, first of all, when painting outside, you're carrying less paint and you won't have to spend your time color mixing. You can just pour it out. Oils, you're set to go right away. Okay, so with these ones here, now the next one is I want to try doing the same thing with transparent red iron oxide. Now transparent red iron oxide is transparent. It's a bit more intense than burnt sienna, but it's transparent. So will the formula be the same? I don't know. We have to try. So, I already have my phthalo green there. So let's take 2 parts of transparent red iron oxide and let's mix that up. And the reason why I like using burnt sienna and transparent red iron oxide for these, because they're a reddish orange. Well, red's opposite the color wheel of green, but because they're more of a neutral color, it dulls it down a little bit naturally. So let's take some white. What does that look like here? Ooh. Interesting, isn't it? Look at that. That's actually the actual sap green in the bottle, made up with 4 pigments. This is it with white, okay? And this is made up with phthalo green yellow and transparent red iron oxide. I'll have to let that dry and see and compare. You know what, I'm going to put that right here because I am liking that mixture. And I would tell you right now that I can do this exercise every day for a month. Or maybe not a month, maybe 2 weeks. The mixtures will be different every single time because you're actually, one day I may pick up a little bit more green and another day I'll pick up a little bit more yellow, or I might pick up a little bit more sienna or something. The mixtures may be a little bit different. I'm liking this mixture. I love using transparent red iron oxide to make this. But that's one of those pigments that not everybody has. But it's beautiful. Especially when for mixed media, if you're creating something vintagey. Okay, this is almost dry. Liking that, yeah. Liking this. So let's take that mixture now and let's, go further by taking, with this mixture, we took Phthalo Green, Burnt Sienna, and Hansa Yellow Medium. So this one here, we took Phthalo Green, Transparent Red Iron Oxide. Let's add a little bit of yellow to that. I don't know if I'm going to have enough paint for this. Probably not. So I'm going to have to make up some more. This is where the mixture is going to change now. This is where the mixture is going to change because we're not using measuring spoons. And a little bit of yellow. Not a lot. But I can definitely tell that there's more yellow in this. Okay, and some white. I'm going to put it right there so we can match that. Much more yellow. Now I'm not worried about matching the values exact. Look how close that is to that. So that's the first mixture. That's with the burnt sienna, and that's with transparent red iron oxide. Interesting. Interesting. So from there, you can decide which one you like the best, but by still using the same pigments over and over and over again, you can decide how you want to do this. So yeah. So it just depends on which one you... I honestly, I like the one with transparent red iron oxide better, just from the transparency standpoint, because then when you're creating your portraits, that the mixtures are a little bit, not so much weaker, but they're not as overpowering. But if you're looking for that opacity, use burnt sienna instead. So love these mixtures here, but you can tell the actual one with the... Let me just do another one right beside. And then let's take some white. And with the leftover paint, just, you know, keep going with your color mixes and just to experiment. Put it into a journal and so this is the one where black was added to it. Okay, so create that value scale. But with the black, it's much more neutral. That's it. So create your color chart, and you know, big mess here. You know, take your leftover paint and do something with it. But create your color chart, and that way you have an idea that you don't have to actually go out and buy Sap Green unless you absolutely have to. You can make it with what you already have, and then you can choose whether or not, you know, it works for you. So what I like to do is create your color chart and then post a picture, hop on over to the private Facebook group or within the blog and the studio to post your pictures there as well, and comment on, you know, how you found the experience. Did you find that you could use this type of green in your landscapes or in your portraits or any other type of art? But we have a great community going on, and everybody will be jumping in to share their comments on your chart. But I would love to see what you've made, and we can compare some notes. Alrighty, so I'm going to clean up this schmozzle of a mess, and until I see you in the next tutorial, stay inspired.